On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road, you're bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long.
Been moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Height that council adjourn this closed session matter at 4:06 p.m. to reconvene in open session. Those in favor? We are back in open session. We were in closed session and discussed some legal advice as it pertains to licensing and fee structure of Friday the 13th, and there was nothing to report out of that session. Thank you. Let's move on to item 10, staff reports and discussion items. Our first item 10A is staff report CS 18-18, found on page 45 of your agenda. This is licensing and fee structure for Friday the 13 events. Who's going to give us this report? Shelley, is that you, or did I go through Mr. Cridlin? Then I'll turn it over to you, and thank you.
Through the Mayor to County Council, yeah, I'll introduce the report and then we'll
Thank you.
open questions, okay? CSD has historically played a large role in managing the Friday 13th event through the rentals of our parks, our paramedic services, and our fire services. However, this is always done in the partnership with other authorities such as the OPP. Public Works play a big part. County bylaw plays a big part. County clerks, Board of Trade, Port Dover Kinsmen, public health, and countless volunteers. It's always been a joint effort to make this event a success. In early 2017, Council had heard a deputation from the Port Dover Kinsmen requesting that the Friday the 13th event designation be changed to a community festival. The purpose of this was to remove or lower the fees associated with the event. The report was originally signed to Community Services as we were deeply involved. It was noted early on that the designation change of this event was problematic and would do little to address the vendor fee rates, which the group had hoped for the end result. With that, the focus of this report did change to obviously fees and the fee structure. The verbiage in this report is a result of work of many different departments and divisions, and as such, questions of this report will be answered by various staff. So for far as fees and licensing, Mr. Loeb and Mr. Gazelle are our experts. Bylaw, I'd mentioned Mr. Barrett, as he's not here. Hopefully Ms. Dusling can stand in. Operations would be myself or Ms. Robinson. And as always, the county CAO is well versed in all of the concerns and issues at hand. And also I failed to mention, as far as special events go, that Ms. Darlington is here as well this evening. The report is written in a fashion that provides council with a few options to choose from. Staff have recommended option 3, which is deferring the decision until 2019. Each option has details supplied with the pros, the cons, when council is considering this. As also council is aware, or should be aware, that setting fees and the structure is ultimately a council decision regardless of what staff recommend. Staff are hopeful tonight with the debate and question and answer period, the decision will be made on the structuring fees for Friday the 13th, which is acceptable to all involved. And with that, I'll turn over to County Council for any questions they may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cridlin. Councillor Black, question time.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Bill. I know in the past, probably a long time ago when we were amalgamated, council asked for a breakdown of our other festivals, what the actual costs were, what the revenues were, and we had that sort of revenue expense and knew how much we were subsidizing each festival. And I don't think we've ever seen, maybe we have, but have we ever had sort of a revenue and expense breakdown for Friday the 13th operations? I know it can be variable depending on cold weather or warm weather, that sort of thing, but I don't know if I've ever seen a cost structure that says that the taxpayers are subsidizing the event by X amount of dollars.
Through the mayor to county council, I don't believe we have finalized numbers for events. I know that's something in the future that staff are looking at. I know in my public work days we would have a handle on what roads cost, but as far as what community service did versus licensing, that sort of thing. So I think it's definitely something in the future we have to get better at and get some type of handle on to give a solid answer on that.
Thank you. Councillor Wells, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I listened to Mr. Cridlin, and I thank you very much for your input. And you started off by suggesting that there was a reason why this event should not be branded as or recognized as a community event. And I wondered if you might explain that to us, why that is the recommendation of the staff.
Do you want to do that? Mr. Cribbs, please.
This event is quantitative and qualitatively different from the others which occur in Norfolk County. Friday the 13th does not have a genesis with the Corporation of Norfolk County. It wasn't someone in economic development. It's not a government initiative. It's a cultural event that has a long history, but has grown out of that community with no government involvement. And to be abundantly clear, as opposed to other events which either do have their origin with Norfolk County staff people on the payroll coming up with an idea and trying to promote something, or being involved in the genesis of something, this is culturally distinct, which is to say, if Norfolk County, this is an event which occurs in Norfolk County, but it is not a Corporation of Norfolk County event. There being a significant distinction is between those two. And because of that, administratively, we deal with it in a different fashion. It's fairly important to note that County Council could cancel the Soup Art Bowl, which happens every year in our facility, our art gallery. You could say, we don't want to hold that anymore, and it would cease. You couldn't say, well, we don't want Friday the 13th to happen, wave a magic wand, and all of a sudden 100,000 people wouldn't show up in Port Dover. It is not our event to control. Consequently, we need to have a different legal framework around it. I hope that addresses the question.
Councillor Wells? Anything further? Not at this time. Councillor Height, and Oliver, and Broughton.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to Mr. Cridlin. On page 47 of our agenda 3 of your report, under definitions, you have the time schedule between the hours of 6 p.m. on Thursday the 12th to midnight on Friday. Are you able to adjust those hours? Like, how did they come about that it's 6 p.m.? Because I've received numerous calls from vendors saying that they can't go in until 6 p.m., so they miss the dinner crowd. And if it was just moved, if they wanted to start earlier, they're not able to unless they go and have to buy another permit. I'm wondering if you would have a problem if those timetables were changed.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Height. Yeah, when I stepped in the position of general manager, these were set in place in the bylaw. I'm not sure what discussions went on before, and I'll look around the room. Maybe some other staff members were involved in that, but these times were picked for a reason, and I'm not sure if it was to keep the event from stretching out for a 2 or 3 day event. So those hours were decided upon, which seemed fair to get the vendors in and catch the crowd. So that's the best I can unfortunately do on that one, not being involved in how these were set.
Okay, so if I heard that correctly, what the event was actually contained, so that it was only a 1 or 2 day, and that's why these hours are like that?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Height.
Yeah,
I know there was talk about if you didn't set some parameters that the event could start on a Wednesday and you could still have things going on a Sunday sort of thing. So it was trying to manage the event because it was coming.
and that was bad?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Height, the decision was made years ago, so it was, I think, to be proactive, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. So let me ask you, through the Mayor to Mr. Cudden, if a vendor in Norfolk County has a permit, and essentially this makes them pay double for that permit, so couldn't we just remove that and say they have a permit for all of Norfolk County? And if you want one for 1 day, just come and get it. You could be from Brantford, Toronto, wherever. Isn't that the easiest?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there's a couple of things. I think within the purpose of business licensing, I think it's important to understand the reasons why a municipality does it. It's not just for the vendors. This is a citizen service. It's not a customer service for the vendors. So the reason why we do licensing is to get involved in things like nuisance prevention. So that's why the date has been shorter. This term of council did extend that time frame on the Thursday, so it used to be actually just the Friday. So this 6 p.m. is actually an extended time frame already, and part of it is to prevent an impact on the residents in Port Dover. In terms of annual licensing, so that's what one of the reasons for the licensing schedule is, specifically to prevent the term of it. If we do annual licensing and this event isn't regulated by one event organizer, people could set up and it could be a week-long event. So that is a challenge. And also, it just becomes complicated, because if we did annual licensing, what would we do? Would we repeal the regulatory schedule? The schedule and the bylaw and the regulation and the ability to enforce this event is very important to the municipality, and it's the best way that we have to protect everybody's interest, including the public's and the public's safety. So that's kind of the underlying principle. So if we get away from the Friday the 13th business licensing schedule and we repeal that and just go to annual licensing, there's a lot of things we as a municipality lose our ability to control with this event.
Okay, now, you mentioned enforcement, so let's pretend I'm a vendor. I go and get my Friday the 13th license. What's stopping me from going on Saturday the 14th and setting up shop at somebody's lawn?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there'd be the license application. So anytime somebody, even with annual licenses, goes to another event, they're required to tell us, and we're required to review the location where they're setting up. So it's often easy with a special event, because we work with Shelley's group there, and we know what events are coming up, and we're in the loop there. So if it's a special event, we can really streamline that. But if somebody's looking to set up, be it a peddler on a private property, they have to have correct zoning on that property to be able to sell, and we have to do a zoning check, and we have to do a full licensing review on it still. So, and then there's also the enforcement aspect. I mean, if you want to get ticketed, set up on a Saturday later on, and you'll receive a ticket, because we do enforcement for these events. So it's, I mean, certainly we never catch 100% of the people who are violators, but we try to do enough to ensure that we're limiting that type of behavior.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to add my 2 cents worth as well in response to Councillor Height. He raised a good point, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the 6 o'clock Friday or Thursday till midnight. And I remember quite clearly that we put those limited but extended hours in deference to the residents of the town of Port Dover, who don't necessarily love PD 13 the way all of us do. And so by putting a start time firm and an end time firm to PD 13 license, that's what we were trying to appease. Personally, just on that point, Mr. Mayor, if it would help vendors, I would suggest one of the changes maybe for 2019 and going forward would be to at least change that 6 p.m. Thursday to 4 p.m. Thursday, so they could catch the supper crowd, but that's it. Beyond that, I don't really support extending it any further. I have a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor, if I could. I'm looking at page 47 of our agenda, which is page 3 of the report, right at the bottom. Bottom paragraph is pretty important to me, relative to the possibility of implementing a reduction in the fee for non-resident vendors as an interim measure in 2018, which was given to us as option 1. I happen to support that option. But the important sentence to me is at the very bottom, where it talks about the Kinsman Club approaching us and requesting a fee reduction for non-residents. Full stop. That's the club's position, and I understand that. But here's the important part for me, even more so. This sentiment was echoed by the Port Dover Board of Trade. I guess a simple question to staff at this point: have we ever received, if you like, confirmation in writing from the Board of Trade that they would support reducing the fee for non-resident vendors down to a level either identical to or very close to the resident vendors? Or is it all just hearsay, he said, she said kind of stuff? That's an important thing for me to know, that the Board of Trade would favor this if that's what we decide to do. Can anyone answer that question for me?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Oliver, to my knowledge, I'm going to say I don't believe we have anything in writing, at least not in my group, and I'm looking around the room. And it did come from a meeting that several staff members were with, along with the Kinsmen in the Board of Trade. So it is a verbal right now.
Okay.
Nothing written that
I mean,
know of.
I support it, Mr. Mayor, but I personally would suggest or request that we do get that confirmation from the Board of Trade if in fact Council decides to go with option 1 for 2018. My only other question at this point, Mr. Mayor, is, and I should remember this myself, in the report at the top of page 3, it makes a distinction between our cold weather events, meaning those from November to the end of April, and our warm weather events from May to the end of October. Fully understand that you're going to get a lot more people, a lot more vendors, a lot more revenue to be made. What is the differential, if any, on the fees for a cold weather PD 13 license versus a warm weather? Because I think it was Amy from the board, or from the Kinsman, that provided me with our schedule, and I'm looking at, I think, the third page where it has all the fees, and I can't see a distinction between a cold weather and a warm weather PD 13 vendor license. Is there a difference, or is there not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the short answer is there is no difference.
Okay.
The fee schedule was inherited it was developed prior to my time here,
Okay.
so I don't know why it was, but one of the things that we did suggest in the summer of 2016 was that, and it's an option for council to consider moving forward, is that we could focus on charging for warm weather events, and if you bought a license for a warm weather event and there was a cold weather event in that year, that cold weather event we wouldn't charge for. So we have a capacity
Yes.
to change the fee schedule to allow licensing on Thursday the 12th and Friday the 13th for 36 or a certain amount of hours in total, rather than to say that we're going to charge for cold weather, because one of the issues that we see as being a major issue, and I think has always been a major issue, is similar to what happened in this April. We had, from a municipal perspective, we had more vendors than we were anticipating, but the weather in April is always very mercurial, so it was bad, and they probably didn't benefit as much from that April event as we could. We're not concerned at all with vendor numbers or turnout for July. That's going to be a huge, huge event, and they're going to likely have great vendor turnout. But it's the cold weather events that the municipality really should be trying to support, or if you're looking to subsidize those ones, that would be a good idea.
I agree with that, Mr. Mayor, and obviously that's not going to help us this year because we don't have another cold weather one. Or do we in November? Is there a third one in November? September of this year. Well, that still would be warm weather. We have... Thank you. All right, so point is, it's a non-issue for 2018, but I certainly support what the clerk has suggested, and another alternative for 2019 and beyond, if a resident vendor has an annual vendor's license that's good for everything except PD13, then for cold weather PD13s, we should allow that annual license to apply and not charge them any fee for a cold weather PD13 vendor license. That's just another variation on what the clerk has suggested. So I guess I still didn't get a real good answer to my question as to why we differentiate between cold weather and warm weather, period. If there's no fee differential, there's no real justification. However, there should be a fee differential, so I guess we'll keep them and implement that going forward. Okay, that's it for now, Mr. Mayor, but I do support for 2018 reducing the non-vendor fee to an amount that we'll agree on, subject to verification in writing by the Board of Trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I've listened in the back room to our county administrator and certainly to Councillor Oliver, but I'm on page 49 and it says other considerations. So if I'm clear on this, I hope I'm clear, that some of these licenses have already been issued, and for July's upcoming date. And if we start changing things, are we not, we got to give rebates, etc.? Yeah. Obviously, if they've already got their permits, I don't think they're unhappy with what they paid. My only concern, and in this whole process, is that, and I realize it's a unique event, but we have costs. I mean, Norfolk County have costs associated with all the events we carry, but I'm a little concerned that this whole thing might get out of whack where, and there's a real potential to get out of higher costs, as the county administrator indicated to us, that I like to see us make sure that somehow we keep some balance in there with our costs versus whatever fees we charge. And I'm sure staff can look at that when they do a further report down the line. So I guess where I'm coming from, if I may, I'm prepared to move the motion in the report, Mayor Luke, because I think I don't have a problem with the options that are option 3. I think it's good for now, and if staff come back to us with a further report for, I'll use the word 2019, then I'm prepared to sit and listen to that, okay?
So you're moving the motion or the recommendation that's at the beginning of this report
That's correct.
on page 45?
That's correct.
Do I have a seconder for that, Councillor Columbus? So I will have Councillor Brunton as the mover and Councillor Columbus as the seconder. And I will read it. Then we'll discuss it. Staff report CS 1818 licensing and fee structure for Friday the 13th be received as information. And that council select option 3, deferring any decision on licensing fees until 2019. Further, that staff prepare another staff report detailing the possible licensing and fee structures for the spring of 2019 in order for the possible new system to be in place for the September 13th, 2019 event. Discussion on this. Councillor Wells, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, a question to staff. Has this been deferred before? This report it's been waiting for some time, has it not?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wells. Yes, I believe the original deputation was, I believe, in January of 2017. And it came to my group, and looking at it, we're on the operational side, it involved fees. I think I mentioned last time when Ms. Ferris did her deputation that it is complicated, and I'm hoping this sheds some of the light on it. So I wouldn't say it has been deferred, but it has taken its time for us to get here today.
Yes, continue, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Cridlin, if we defer this again for next year, are we assured that we will have a report and will be dealt with next year? I mean, to put this off for 2 years, I need your assurance that this will come before council. I probably won't be here. I won't be here. But at least it will be dealt with next year. Because I think, to be fair to the community volunteers and the ones who look after this and spend a great deal of time, I think it's only fair that we make a decision one way or the other, and then they can deal with it as they have to.
Through the mayor, Councillor Wells, yes, I mean, I know through the CEO that if a report is requested in early 2019, you will get the report. It will give staff a little more time to look at more options, explore sort of thing, but again, it ultimately will come back to what council can set the fees and what they see best suited for this event.
Yes, anything, just a second, anything further? Okay, thank you, Council. Go ahead, Councillor Brunton.
And I just want to make sure through you to Mr. Cridlin that when that report comes back, you will identify our cost. And I think the county manager identified some of those other costs that are basically hidden, I guess. Correct?
As we speak here today, we do not have a mechanism to properly aggregate or be able to record or gather the actual resource to account properly for the costs we're incurring with respect to Friday the 13th. There are staff members who have been tasked already, past verb tense, are currently working on, it's a computer software as much as it is an accounting solution. So in fact, we have some people from finance and some from our IT department conjunctively working on a mechanism whereby we can record and then come up with actual data for you. Because right now we can't prove or disprove. That's the benefit in the deferral, because we're trying to give you the most accurate possible data. And right now, I can give you back of the envelope, but I can't give you better than that. So we're going to try to put that methodology in place for July. If nothing else, it'll be pretty good or it'll be accurate, but it'll be something between those two. And so that'll be, now admittedly, the problem is that'll be based on one event, which one anticipates being very well attended because it's July.
Right.
So it'll be at the high water mark, if you will be the only data. But if this council or a future council can react to the fact that it knows the data is from a high point rather than, say, a Friday the 13th in January, which one would think would be a low point, and make a decision based on that. But we do want to provide you with better data than we currently can.
Well, again, I think it's important, and I said this before, is that we do have a cost in every event we do. And I'm not saying we got to recover all our costs, because I'm sure there's other events we do not recover all our costs. But I think it's important to the taxpayer that we can say, okay, here's what it costs us, and here's, I'll use the word, here's what we subsidize. I think that's important. Thank you.
One question for my clarification, if I may, to you, Councillor Brunton, in supporting, in your recommendation that you put on the floor, it's understood that for this July, the last event in 2018, that the residential fee that we charge for that event is $282, and that the non-residential fee will remain at $548 for this one event. Correct? Thank you. Just want to be clear on that. Councillor, go ahead, and then Councillor Wells.
And again, so I'm clear, some of those have been paid already.
Some, yes, we've heard that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wells, please.
Mayor, I just would like to comment on a comment that Councillor Brunton made. He certainly is correct that there is cost associated with Friday the 13th. There's no doubt about that. And I would be stupid to suggest that that is not the truth. However, no other event that is hosted in Norfolk County generates the type of revenue for the citizens of Norfolk County that this event does. So, you know, what you win in the bananas, sometimes you lose in the grapes.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. There is certainly no arguing that PD 13 brings a ton of business and tourism into Norfolk County. It is unfortunate that after all these years, we still haven't gotten a handle on the cost from our staff on what it takes to actually run it. For me personally, I won't be supporting this option. I'm not into the deferral. We've deferred this every year, I think, since I've been here. It keeps getting deferred and deferred and deferred. Yeah, I'm ready to go ahead today. I kind of feel, though, that this is more of a money grab than anything else. Our local vendors pay a fee to vend in Norfolk County, anywhere in Norfolk County, except this event. This is just reaching into their pockets saying, the grassroots establishment have established this event that brings a ton of business to Norfolk County, and we want more of your money. And you're asking them to pay twice. Fair enough, you have to pay for your spot and all the other stuff, but Norfolk County is asking them to pay twice. And I'm not going to support that, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure if the mover of the motion wanted to, I don't know, add a clause that staff be directed to come up with the cost thing. Because I know we've talked about this every year because it's been deferred for every year, and we're yet to see a cost. And there's something so wrong about that, not having a cost in it. I don't understand how we can have staff members out working and not know that they're actually working, and then can't put it all together again. That's pretty bothersome to me. And like I said earlier, I think the time schedule does not work for the vendors. I honestly think it's detrimental to the cause. 6 p.m. doesn't work. At midnight, everybody has to get out, or bylaw comes over at 12:01 to give everybody tickets. It's kind of an odd time, if you ask me, but I certainly won't be supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do you want a response from the mover? Do you understand the question?
Yes,
Fire
I
away.
do. And I believe our county manager and the Mr. Cridlin both indicated that those costs would be identified. They just don't have that handle on everything right now. So I think it's a great idea to get the whole bailiwick in one place and find out what we are spending down there. And I agree with Councillor Wells. It's probably the biggest revenue generator, but let's see what the figures are, that's all. And I'm willing to wait. I don't see it as an issue. And that, my understanding, will be taken care of.
Mr. Griselle?
Sorry, just really briefly, just to ensure for the record it's clear, it's a principle of business licensing that we cannot recover any revenue. We can't profit. The municipality is not profiting from any of these fees. These are all expenditures that are going out. So that's a principle just of the legal nature of business licensing. So just to clarify that, not to...
Any further discussion on this motion? Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me have one final kick. I just want to remind my colleagues, if we approve the motion put forward by my colleague, we're doing it flying in the face of the Kinsman Club and flying in the face of the Port Dover Board of Trade, apparently, which I don't really feel we should be doing.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, well, you've heard the motion. It is printed exactly as I read on page 45 of the staff report. Further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? It's defeated. Mr. Oliver?
Mr. Mayor, I'll put forward a further motion then, and that is that we would, it would be paragraph 1 as written. Paragraph 2 would say, and that council select option 1, which is in fact a reduction in fee for the 2018 July event for non-resident vendors from its present level down to a level of $300. And then the third paragraph would remain as it is. In other words, we still get a report in time prior to the first event in 2019. So it would just be to amend the second paragraph to select option 1 instead of option 3, and that in fact is to reduce the non-resident vending fee to $300 for the July 2018 event.
You wish to move that?
I do.
I have a seconder for that. Councillor Geisens. So what is being put on the floor now? It's been moved by Oliver, seconded by Geisens. First of all, it's received as information, and the change would be in the second paragraph, and that council select option 1 to provide a one-time reduction on licensing fees for the July 13th, 2018 event for non-resident vendors to be $300 per license. And then the last paragraph remain the same. Okay, that is now on the floor. Discussion. Councillor Brunton.
Well, questions, if I may, Mayor Luke. Is there much, I'm not sure who would answer this, but is there much work involved with the rebates for all these people that have already picked up a license?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I haven't checked for about a week and a half, but when I did, we only had about a dozen of them. So, and I checked with my staff to make sure that they had, they obviously do have mailing addresses. Okay. So it's just getting finance to do the checks and putting them in the mail, or we could just wait till they come pick up the license and hand them back the rebate. So it won't be difficult. It takes time, but it's not difficult.
Okay, and my last question, if I may. So it applies to July's. What about, is it September, the next one?
Not till September of 2019.
What happens then? Okay, so
yeah,
we don't
so you
have
have 14 months.
right.
Yeah, there's 2 in 2019, September and December, so a warm month and a cold month again.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Height.
Mayor Luke, I was wondering if the mover would be amendable to changing that time start. It is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, that's a different, go ahead and respond to that. It's in a different bylaw. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what we're talking about is making a one-time amendment. Well, it doesn't even need to be really amended in the user fees because it's just one time. So we can rely on council's resolution. But the times as set are in the actual Friday the 13th business licensing bylaw schedule. And so it'd probably be best if you presented a separate motion for that we could debate and vote upon for bringing forward an amended bylaw.
Okay. Mr. Oliver, anything?
think in light of the clerk's response, I'll say, no, I don't want to try and put it into this one. If my colleague wants to bring another one forward, we'll talk about it.
Okay, anything further? You've heard this motion to reduce the one-time license fee for this July down to $300. Okay, those in favor? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? 2, 3. That is carried. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the time as we must start our applications for public meetings at 5.
Does Councillor Height does he wish to put forward a motion?
Councillor Height, I'm being asked if you wish to put forward a motion now. No? Okay. Let's break until 5 o'clock, shall we? Thank you.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling